So good evening. Thank you for inviting me to speak at Great Mountain Zen Center. My name is Geido, and I'm a novice priest at the Southern Palm Zen group of South Florida. And tonight I'd like to share how Zen as life practice was brought to light for me in a rather unusual situation. I had an established sitting practice within a variety of Buddhist traditions before coming to Zen practice a little over 16 years ago. And despite the passage of all that time, I still remember the first time I walked into a formal Zendo. I felt like I was swimming in a sea of robes, black ones, brown ones, gold ones. Some people wore what looked to me like black bibs. Some didn't. There was bowing with hands together, bowing with forehead to the floor, bowing to mats, bowing to each other. We sat facing the wall, then away from the wall. There were big bells, tinkling bells, clackers and drums. Everyone knew what to do, where to stand, when to bow, when to sit, except me. I felt I would never catch up with all those people who just seemed to know. But I kept going back over and over because in the midst of my confusion, I had a knowing that I had found my real and true home. Immersing myself in learning these new practice forms, I created a fixed view. Liturgy, ritual, and zazen were the only true ways of practice. I felt distrust and distant from articles and talks about the Zen practice of, and you can fill in the blank, art, music, photography, cooking. None of that made any sense to me at all. It was only when I immersed myself in practice for a while that I began to realize the beauty and depth of Zen. I came to know Zen as life, moment by moment, breath by breath, and became aware that there's no difference in Zen practice between on and off the cushion. And within that awareness, embracing the intimacy of Zen as life practice, a Zen woman arose and continually enriched my being. Charlotte Joko Beck's book, Everyday Zen, profoundly shaped my vision of Zen practice. She wrote, "So the crux of Zazen is this. All we must do is constantly create a little shift from the spinning world we've got in our heads to the right here now." That's our practice. The intensity and ability to be right here now is what we have to develop. We have to be able to develop the ability to say, no, I won't spin off here. To make that choice, moment by moment, our practice is like a choice, a fork in the road. We can go this way, we can go that way. It's always a choice, moment by moment, between our nice world that we want to set up in our heads and what really is. Our Zen training is designed to enable us to live comfortable lives. But the only people who live comfortably are those who learn not to dream their lives away, but to be with what's right here now, no matter what it is. Good, bad, nice, not nice, headache, being ill, being happy. It doesn't make any difference. I began to imagine that little shift as the difference between a prism and a lens. A prism bends ordinary light into many different colors for critique, selection, or rejection. Those choices help form that dreamlike spinning world in our heads. A lens, when skillfully adjusted, allows clear seeing of the right here now, meeting the bare truth of each moment. Early on, I needed a reminder to turn at that fork in the road towards the lens, not the prism. A reminder to enter each unembellished bare moment openly and completely. I created a short verse in the form of a question that I ask myself even to this day. Geido, where is your practice now? Geido, where is your practice now? 2 years ago, my verse supported me within life practice in a memorable way. And Zen teachings I had studied for many years guide me in a way I never could have imagined. And that is the story I'd like to share with you tonight. First, some background. A devastating injury to my left foot in 2009 left me in severe chronic pain and unable to walk without a cane and some orthotics. Even with those supports, I ambulated slowly with an obvious limp. After a few years, I not only limped, but lost the fluidity of movement in my upper body, that movement that provides grace, balance, and overall stability. My work as a physician assistant became challenging. Traversing long hospital corridors was a test of grit and pain tolerance. Life in the Zendo was almost unmanageable. Kinhin was an impossibility. I couldn't keep my balance with hands and shashu, and walking barefoot was just too painful. Finally, after 3 surgeries, physical therapy, and 5 years post-injury, I was able to walk without pain, but my atrophied left leg and persistently swollen left foot resisted most attempts at normal motion. It was also apparent that my body had forgotten how to integrate smooth, continuous movement. Although I lost my limp, imagine a drunken tin man from The Wizard of Oz. That was my new walking pattern. Our eldest daughter, Sarah, was routinely running half and full marathons at the time. And she suggested to me simple walking to build not only muscle strength in my legs, but to regain balance and fluidity in my gait. I agreed and began by listening to music to help me reprogram my body kinetics. When I regained a bit of balance and confidence that I wouldn't fall on my face, I switched to Dharma podcasts. The rest, as they say, is history. I did a lot of walking, and my leg returned to its almost pre-injury functioning. In 2018, I fast walked a half marathon. I resumed weightlifting and core training. And 3 months later, at the urging of a Dharma brother who had completed 23 marathons in his lifetime, 5 of them in Boston, I began to run. I entered a few 5K races in my community just to keep me interested, motivated, and challenged to move faster. And to celebrate my 65th birthday in 2019, I signed on for Disney World's Star Wars Challenge Weekend, a 5K, 10K, and half marathon on consecutive days in April. 3 days of running. What a crazy, ridiculous move. What a great opportunity for Zen as life practice. The 5 and 10K were a nice warm-up. The half marathon was a merciless teacher. The morning of the half invited the Florida humidity to rear its oppressive head in full majesty. Runners were warned on Disney loudspeakers that this was a day not to try for PB running time. That's racing lingo for personal best running time. As I stood in my corral at 5 a.m. in the dark with over 6,000 other humans, I felt my hands, arms, and face become sticky. It was difficult to breathe, not because of the crowding, but because of the humidity, announced then at 86%, temperatures predicted to be in the 90s. I began to think this might not have been one of my best ideas ever. I turned to my guiding question, Geido, where is your practice now? Sakido Kiser tells us the identity of relative and absolute. Fire is hot, water is wet, wind moves, and the earth is dense. I was given a day with Florida humidity. I made a choice to run with humidity, with the reality of the moment as it was, not how I wanted it to be. My chorale was released at 8 a.m. At 6 a.m., sorry. Still humid, still dark. As I slowed my pace for the first water station, 3 miles were behind me, 10.1 to go. My clothes and hair were already plastered to my body, and runners around me looked as wet and apprehensive as I was. Geido, where is your practice now? I cautioned myself not to dream about the finish line. That line did not exist in that moment. What did exist was each single step within the race. Buddha turns the Dharma wheel, and so reality is shown in many forms. And my reality at that moment was in the form run. The real challenge was about to reveal itself. At mile 6, the sun came up to bake the salty sweat into my skin. Now I was simultaneously thirsty, sticky, and slippery, and perceived my running time to be slower than I trained for, slower than I wanted it to be. At Disney races, there are unmarked monitors who run the race with participants. If monitors perceive a runner as physically struggling or racing slower than the projected time, they are pulled from the field and loaded into one of the large air-conditioned buses parked along the race route. Runners have nicknamed these loser buses. I did not want to be on the loser bus. Random thoughts began to panic me. My focus, pace, and breath were rapidly slipping away. Monkey mind arose and began its diligent work. According to our friends at Wikipedia, monkey mind is a Zen Buddhist term meaning unsettled, restless, capricious, whimsical, fanciful, inconsistent, confused, indecisive, uncontrollable. My monkey ranted, "You will never make it. You are too slow. You have more than 7 miles to go. It's silly to run in this heat, dangerous. Your blood sugar is probably low. You're going to make yourself sick. You will never make it." Above the screaming monkey, a quiet question. Geido, where is your practice now? So how to practice with a howling monkey? I recalled studying the meditation of the 32 parts of the body, contained in the Visuddhimagga, part of the Satipatthana Sutta. It was originally created as an antidote to lust. Buddha divided the physical aspects of the body into 32 separate parts to be considered in various states of existence. For example, hair is usually considered an attractive aspect of human form. Imagine a man or a woman with lush, thick, beautiful hair. Now imagine one of those strands floating in a bowl of delicious soup you're about to eat. See what I mean? Various states of existence. The 32 parts of the body for contemplation are head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bone, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, and liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, large and small intestine, stomach, feces, brain, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, mucus, oil of the joints, and urine. Although I couldn't remember all 32 parts of what felt like my rapidly deteriorating body, I was able as I ran to focus on a few. How different my hair felt, wet and bouncing, heavy and matted. My skin burning with the sun, crinkly with dried salty sweat. My sinews, those are tendons and ligaments, stretching, supporting, propelling my body through space. My heart and diaphragm, one a pump, one a bellows, working without rest, nourishing me with oxygen. Phlegm protecting my lungs from dust and dryness. My blood traveling without obstruction to every needy part of me, keeping my muscles from cramping. Sweat pouring over me, trying to cool me, even as it dripped into my socks and onto my shoes. The fat of my body providing me with energy. tears, saliva, and mucus, keeping my eyes, nose, and throat moist between water breaks. And oil of the joints, my brave joints, wounded and broken not so long ago, now forging on without even a peep of discontent throughout this whole endeavor. I was simultaneously grateful for and repelled by the parts of my body and in awe with their ability to work as a whole and do my crazy bidding this day. Geido, where is your practice now? I was focused and present until the 10-mile water stop. At that point, I needed to slow to a walk and then stopped. I felt I had nothing left. I stood at the water station and drank cup after cup of water, watching the other runners pass me, some trotting, others walking. Some had removed and thrown their shirts to the side of their running path, and others in Star Wars costumes trudged along, looking beyond miserable. A few opted to sit out the remainder of the race on wooden benches that dot Disney's landscape. The heat and humidity had become brutal, impossible to ignore. And some pain arose in my repaired left foot, the vicious monkey convincing me it was a stress fracture. Now I couldn't possibly make it to the finish. How stupid even to try. At that moment, I realized I was tethered by the monkey to the water station, looking clearly through the lens, not the distorting prism. Was I tired? Very. And my foot hurt, but was it in reality broken? I asked myself again, Geido, where is your practice now? I thought about all those long retreats I sat zazen, remembering times I wished I could get up and move my stiff, cramped limbs. And now I was wishing for stillness in the midst of being able to move freely. What a paradox. Truly, I was standing at that fork in the road Joko Beck wrote about and had to make a choice. Suddenly, Manjushri appeared, his insight and glittering sword slashing through the ropey entanglements so carefully woven by that monkey. I took one last gulp of water and ran. Hakuin kept me company, chanting in my head, drowning out the wild monkey. Then the gate to the oneness of cause and effect is thrown open. Not two and not three, straight ahead runs the way. The gate that opens the path, the illumination of Zen, the clarity of the way. No one gets to the finish line by dreaming of it. I had 3 more miles to go, a 5K, a distance I had run on a regular basis many, many times in the past. Then I remembered all those runs were me through Uji, the time being. Dogen took over, whispering part of his fascicle in my ear. Do not think that time merely flies away. Do not see flying away as the only function of time. If time merely flies away, you would be separated from time. The reason you do not clearly understand the time being is that you think of time only as passing. In essence, all things in the entire world are linked with one another as moments, because all moments are the time being. They are your time being. Geido, where is your practice now? I continued running that race and all the races I ever ran and will ever run. I did make it past the finish line in a personal best time, my greatest surprise of the day. When I crossed the finish line, I was happy to see my husband waiting for me and mentally bowed to the Zen practice that carried me from the bank of the start line to the shore of completion. And once again, in the unbounded joy of that moment, I asked, Geido, where is your practice now?